Salam Keluarga Malaysia. Hello and good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. I'm Mohana Priya and you're watching Updates at Noon. Our headlines today. King urges Malaysians in Singapore to vote in GE15. Government to consider postal votes for university students. Yang di-Pertuan Agong Al-Sultan Abdullah Riayatuddin Al-Mustafa Billah Shah has called on Malaysians residing in Singapore to fulfill their responsibilities by voting in the 15th General Election, GE15, on 19th November. His Majesty said all Malaysians have the rights to vote despite living in other countries.
Tuan-tuan dan puan-puan sebagai rakyat yang bertanggungjawab untuk mengundi di pilihan raya yang akan datang. Walaupun jauh sikit tetapi hati mesti dekat untuk menunaikan tanggungjawab tuan-tuan sebagai rakyat Malaysia yang dia berhak untuk mengundi.
Al-Sultan Abdullah said this during his speech at a dinner with the Malaysian diaspora at the Shangri-La Hotel in Singapore last night. The King also expressed his appreciation to Malaysians living in Singapore who helped each other in various ways during the COVID-19 pandemic. The Malaysian Aviation Commission, MAVCOM, has found that most of the domestic airfares during the travelling period for the upcoming 15th General Election have dropped after the high increase following the announcement on the date of the elections. MAVCOM said that based on its review, a one-way average domestic airfare across all airlines for routes within the Peninsula Malaysia is 185 ringgit. Meanwhile, the average airfare within East Malaysia is 188 ringgit and 296 ringgit for routes between the Peninsula and East Malaysia. MAVCOM Executive Chairman Datuk Sri Saripudin Kasim said the airlines have introduced promotions and launched discounted airfares to facilitate the cause. Based on data submitted to MAVCOM, all local scheduled airlines have also planned extra flights for the general election beginning November using the resources at their disposal. The planned additional flights include 45 from the Kuala Lumpur International Airport, KLIA, to selected locations within Peninsula Malaysia. For flights from Subang, 30 additional flights are planned to selected destinations within the Peninsula and 68 extra flights planned for between Peninsula and East Malaysia. In addition, there are flights planned to selected destinations within East Malaysia under the Rural Air Services Program and 5 planned additional flights between Subang and Seletar in Singapore. The government should consider allowing university students to vote via post since it would be costly for them to fly home to cast their ballots. Minister in the Prime Minister's Department for Parliament and Law, Datuk Sri Dr. Wan Junaidi Tuanku Jaafar said since the voting age had been lowered to 18, university students should be given every chance to exercise their rights.
Kalau kita dapat fasilitatekan universiti itu supaya initial stage, supaya dibuat cara undi pos. Kalau boleh dibuat di askar, tentera, kena ubah undang-undang lah. Anak-anak universiti berkumpul di universiti, latihkan sikit profesor dan lecturers ni dan pemimpin-pemimpin pelajar ni untuk bantu mengawalkan pemilihan. Macam polis juga, macam tu lah. Pegawai-pegawai dilatih untuk mengawal. Pengundian dibuat.
Speaking after an event to hand over Peranti Siswa devices at University Putra Malaysia, Datuk Sri Dr. Wan Junaidi also said that technology should be utilised to reduce spending on elections. He proposed for electronic voting to be implemented nationwide to reduce the cost of holding elections. The statement by the Malaysian Bar Council questioning the impartiality of the Special Task Force to investigate allegations by former Attorney General Tan Sri Thomas in his book My Story, Justice in the Wilderness is completely baseless and inaccurate. Datuk Sri Dr. Wan Junaidi said the task force had invited the council to participate in the consultation sessions to ensure that all parties' views were taken into consideration, but the council had declined. Datuk Sri Dr. Wan Junaidi stressed that the methodology used, issues analysed, the stakeholders involved in the consultation sessions, as well as those who had refused to participate, have all been listed in the report. He said this clearly shows that the task force had conducted the job in a responsible, transparent and impartial manner. He added that all findings obtained were based on the 19 consultations carried out by the task force amongst the various stakeholders, and it had also looked into the various documents that were provided by the relevant agencies. The Special Task Force had also submitted its recommendations for improvements in various areas, such as the judiciary and the legal system, for further consideration by the government. Altruistic values and openness must be instilled and nurtured in every young leader to serve the Keluarga Malaysia and country in the best and most effective way. Chief Secretary to the Government, Tan Sri Mohamad Zuki Ali, said altruism refers to prioritising the happiness and welfare of others above one's own, while openness is an effective communication pattern. Tan Sri Mohamad Zuki said the role of young leaders in cultivating altruistic values and openness can also create stability and prosperity for the Keluarga Malaysia in general. He added that openness can provide multiple benefits to the organisation, as brilliant ideas can emerge and create a harmonious atmosphere in the organisation. He also reminded the young leaders serving abroad that they are ambassadors of the government and diplomats who are a reflection of the public service in Malaysia and must therefore conduct themselves with decency in every matter up to the decision-making stage. Tan Sri Mohamad Zuki said this in his keynote address in conjunction with the Global Young Executive Forum 2022. His speech text was read by Youth and Sports Ministry Secretary General Dato' M. Jana Santiran. The Keluarga Malaysia Aspirations Tour JAKM in Pahang begins today with the theme Keluarga Malaysia, the core of national defence. The organisation of the event is led by the Ministry of Defence.
Siri yang ke-12 pada kali ini, Kementerian Peneraju adalah Kementerian Pertahanan ataupun MINDEF, yang mana dia membawakan tema keluarga teras pertahanan keluarga Malaysia, teras pertahanan negara. Dan kelainan yang telah dibawakan oleh Kementerian Peneraju, of course kita akan mengadakan mini DSA ataupun Defence Security Asia, yang mana akan mempamerkan alat-alat ketenteraan di Stadium Sultan Muhammad Shah, Stadium Pahang Darul Makmur di Kuantan.
The program will run for 3 days, involving the participation of about 25 ministries, small and medium industry entrepreneurs, private sector and non-governmental organizations to highlight their services and products. The Naga Nasional Berhad TNB and Gamuda Land, the property development arm of Gamuda Berhad, have entered into a strategic partnership to build 2 electron stations for electric vehicle or EV charging at Gamuda Land's property projects in Selangor. The two companies inked a memorandum of understanding to develop Malaysia's electron stations at Gamuda Cove in southern Klang Valley and Gamuda Gardens in northern Klang Valley for communities and visitors of the water theme park at Gamuda Cove. The MOU would pave the way for the utility company and Gamuda Land to collaborate towards increasing the usage of electric vehicles in Malaysia and achieve the nation's net zero emissions aspiration by 2050. The companies said in a joint statement that the electric charging stations will be compatible with all vehicle makers ranging from hybrid, plug-in hybrid and fully electric vehicles. The stations, slated to serve motorists by 2025, will accelerate the development of the ecosystem and infrastructure for EV in the country, thus supporting the sustainability vision of both companies. The future electron stations will be powered by rooftop solar panels that will help offset the electricity from the grid and support a greener environment.
Hepatitis adalah penyakit keradangan hati akibat daripada jangkitan virus hepatitis. Hepatitis A yang berjangkit melalui pencemaran makanan dan air biasanya menyebabkan jangkitan hati yang akut dan tidak berpanjangan. Hepatitis B dan C pula berjangkit melalui darah yang tercemar. Antaranya adalah melalui perkongsian jarum suntikan, transfusi darah, hubungan seksual dan jangkitan ibu kepada anak. Berlainan daripada hepatitis A, hepatitis B dan C boleh menyebabkan kerosakan hati yang kronik dan bara hati. Kebanyakan pesakit hepatitis B dan C tidak mengalami tanda dan gejala pada peringkat awal. Tanda atau gejala seperti muntah darah, jaundice dan busung hanya akan muncul setelah penyakit hepatitis menjadi semakin kronik. Oleh itu, lakukan ujian saringan hepatitis jika anda berisiko tinggi untuk mendapat jangkitan dan dapatkan rawatan dengan segera jika perlu di klinik kesihatan terdekat. Bersama kita cegah hepatitis.
A groundbreaking ceremony was held on Thursday in Davao City of the Philippines for the Samal Island Davao City Connector SIDC bridge project, which will be built by a Chinese engineering company. With a total length of 3.81 kilometers, the bridge will connect Davao City and the island garden city of Samal in the southern Philippines. President of the Philippines, Ferdinand Romualdez Marcos, said the project will be financed by the Chinese government and the China Road and Bridge Corporation will serve as the general contractor for the design and construction of the bridge.
Once completed, this bridge will help us develop the economic potential of Davao City and the island garden of the city of Samal, as well as enhance its residents' access to employment, education, and other services. It is for us to express also our gratitude to the government of the People's Republic of China.
Once completed, the bridge is expected to shorten travel time from Davao City to Samal from around 30 minutes via ferry to merely 5 minutes, which will greatly facilitate people's travel and enhance the economic connection between the two places. The bridge will be constructed within 5 years and create about 1,000 jobs, which will boost the economic development of the southern Philippines. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau met with US Secretary of State Antony Blinken yesterday, shortly after Canada announced that it would seek membership to the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. Now, the meeting came after Blinken met with his counterpart, Foreign Minister Melanie Joly, in what he called a terrific working session that touched upon a variety of economic and foreign policy issues. Trudeau and Blinken both stressed their nations' cooperation on matters regarding Ukraine, Iran and Haiti, among other issues.
But as the Prime Minister said, we also face challenges together well beyond this hemisphere that we share, in the hemisphere itself, but also beyond it. And in looking at those challenges, whether it's the Russian aggression in Ukraine, whether it's what we're seeing on the streets of Iran today, whether it's the terrible burden that the people of Haiti are carrying. The thing that gives me confidence and optimism that we can meet the challenges is the fact that we're working so closely together.
During his one-day visit to Canada, Blinken was also scheduled to visit a community that supports Ukrainian refugees with Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland and meet with African Union Commission Chairperson Moussa Faki. Iraqi lawmakers approved a new government yesterday, ending more than a year of deadlock, but still faces many challenges. Prime Minister Mohammad Shia al-Sudani, 52, who previously served as Iraq's Human Rights Minister, as well as Minister of Labour and Social Affairs, will head the new government. Sudani's picks for 21 ministries passed during a parliament vote on the cabinet. He named the former head of the state-run South Gas Corporation, Hayyan Abdul Ghani, as oil minister, kept Fuad Hussein as foreign minister for a second term, and Taif Sami as finance minister. Sudani vowed to reform the economy, fight corruption, improve deteriorating public services, combat poverty and unemployment, among other things. He also promised to mend the election law within 3 months and hold early parliamentary elections within a year. Sadr withdrew his 73 lawmakers in August and said he would quit politics, prompting the worst violence in Baghdad for years when his loyalists stormed government buildings and fought rival groups, most of them backed by Iran and with armed wings. The year-long political paralysis has left Iraq without a budget for 2022, holding up spending on much-needed infrastructure projects and economic reform. Amazon.com yesterday forecast costs might eviscerate its profit for the current quarter as early holiday marketing does little to boost sales growth and as labour and delivery expenses continue to swell. Amazon has sought higher revenue in all places, raising fees for its fast shipping club Prime up to an annual 43% in Europe this quarter. It imposed a fuel and inflation surcharge on some merchants, and for the first time it had not one but 2 cornerstone sales events in a year. However, these efforts may not pay off as Amazon's net sales were $127.1 billion in the third quarter, ended 30th September, a little lower than analysts' expectations of $127.46 billion. Amazon Web Services, AWS, the company's lucrative data storage and computing division serving enterprises, only helps so much. While it provided much-needed operating income, just like Microsoft, Amazon fell short of estimates. Worldwide shipping costs grew 10% in the third quarter to $19.9 billion. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky yesterday stood outside in the dark beside the wreckage of a downed drone and vowed that widespread Russian attacks on power plants would not break Ukrainian spirits. Abandoning his usual indoor setting, Zelensky said in his daily video address that Kiev had shot down 23 drones in the last 2 days.
Страшніше ворожих ракет у нашому небі почути ворожий гімн на нашій землі. Нас не злякає темрява. Найтемніші часи для нас не без світла, а без волі. Наші військові міцні, волонтери невтомні, партнери надійні, а люди незламні. Друга армія світу буде все меншою. Втрати ворога стануть дедалі більшими. Я впевнений, ворожа пропаганда не працює, провокації не діють, погрози не лякають. Не злякає нас і будь-яка важка зима.
Russia has aimed dozens of missiles and unmanned aerial vehicles at Ukraine's electricity generating network in the last 2 weeks, causing major damage and triggering blackouts. Kiev and 4 regions may have to cut electricity supplies for longer than planned after Russian strikes. Zelensky said that Russia had so far launched more than 8,000 airstrikes and fired 4,500 missiles. Production of the first circulating British coins featuring an image of King Charles III began at the Royal Mint facilities in Wales yesterday. Now, the first coin bearing a portrait of King Charles is a memorial 50 pence honouring Queen Elizabeth II, which will go into public circulation in December. The King Charles effigy on the coin was created by British sculptor Martin Jennings. In keeping with tradition, the portrait of Charles faces in the opposite direction of that of his mother. Since the restoration of the monarchy in 1660, after 11 years of Republican rule under the Oliver Cromwell and his son, it has become tradition for the monarch to face in the opposite direction to their predecessor on coins. Charles personally approved the official portrait, which showed him facing to the left. The image is surrounded by a Latin inscription, which translates as King Charles III, by the grace of God, defender of the faith. Queen Elizabeth died on 8th September, aged 96, after 70 years on the throne. Some 27 billion coins with her image are in circulation and will remain legal tender as they are gradually phased out over time. Monza football player Pablo Mari has been stabbed along with 4 other people in a shopping mall in the town of Assago outside Milan, according to news agency ANSA. The BBC said a 46-year-old suspect has been detained and that the motive for the attack was not clear. The 29-year-old Spanish centre-back Murray is on loan at Syria club Monza from Arsenal. Arsenal manager Mikel Arteta said that after he found out, he got to know from his technical director that has been in touch with his relatives. Arteta acknowledged that the football player is in hospital, but he was informed that Murray seems to be in stable condition. Arteta was speaking at a news conference after his team's match away to PSV Eindhoven. Meanwhile, Monza chief executive Adriano Galliani on a Twitter post also expressed words of encouragement and support, saying that the team is close to Murray's family and hopes he gets well soon. Strong starts for TFC and KL City in Malaysia Cup campaign. That and more next in sports. Super League 2022 runners-up Terengganu FC kicked off their Malaysia Cup campaign in style last night as they pounded Sri Pahang FC 5-1 in the first leg of the round of 16 at the Darul Makmur Stadium in Kuantan. Liberian import striker Kapas Sherman emerged as the hero for the Turtle squad, scoring a hat-trick in the match to stun the home side. Kapas Sherman opened the scoring for the visitors in the first minute through a stunning volley. Nick Sharif Hasifi Mohamed Lazim added a second just a minute later as he lashed in a fine pass from Mohamed Faisal Abdul Halim to beat goalkeeper Mamadou Semasa. Sri Pahang's Andres Steven Rodriguez scored a superb goal in the 42nd minute to close the gap before the break. But in the 49th minute, Mohamed Faisal scored the third goal for Terengganu after receiving a pass from Kipre Cheche to stretch the lead. Kapas Sherman then scored his second and third goals in the 52nd and 90th minutes respectively to seal the game. Kuala Lumpur City FC also began their Malaysia Cup campaign brightly as they beat PDRM FC 3-0 at the Kuala Lumpur Football Stadium in Cheras. KL City FC was seen dominating most of the game until the final whistle. The City boys went ahead just before the break through Colombian import Romel Morales. The home side continued to dominate the game in the second half, and Paulo Josue scored the second goal in the 67th minute before Morales added the third in the 79th minute. The victory had placed KL City in a comfortable position before facing PDRM again in the second leg at the same venue next week. Commenting on the win, KL City FC head coach Boyan Hodak said he was satisfied with the performance showed by his players. However, he said several improvements need to be made, especially concerning the attacking positions, in order to further enhance the team.
3-0 good result, good for confidence, good that we win, good that we didn't concede a goal. Defensively, more or less, was okay, except in 2-3 situations. Attackingly, we need to improve. Again, problem was finishing. We complicate a little bit things when we come to final third. We need to be more simple, and I think there's few players that didn't play for a long time, maybe.
He also expressed hope that his team would display an even better performance in the next match against PDRM. Harimau Malaya will know their hunting ground soon as the Football Association of Malaysia, FAM, will finalise the venue for the AFF Cup in the coming days. If the National Stadium in Bukit Jalil is unavailable, FAM will opt for an alternative from among Johor's Sultan Ibrahim Stadium, Kuala Lumpur Stadium, Malacca's Hang Jebat Stadium and Terengganu's Sultan Mezan Zainal Abidin Stadium. FAM Secretary General Nur Azman Rahman said they were in the midst of finalising some details before announcing the venue for the AFF Cup.
Untuk nak finalize pun adalah few kita ada beberapa option, adalah 3-4 option. That's why cuma nak dari segi venue tu kita nak dapatkan dari segi dia punya padang, rumput apa semua tu kan, itu je sikit. Basically dah okey lah. Cuma tak 1-2 hari je. Lepas tu kita akan finalize lewat-lewatnya Sabtu lah.
The national team will host Laos on 24th December and Singapore on 3rd January in the AFF Cup. Their away matches are against Myanmar on 21st December and Vietnam on 27th December. Spain's Roberto Bautista Agut knocked out Britain Andy Murray at the second round of the Swiss indoors Basel ATP 500 event yesterday. Now, he claimed a victory in straight sets, 6-3, 6-2, but the scoreline doesn't tell the full story as both players fought hard and it was Bautista Agut who won the crucial points. Murray got off to a solid start by breaking in the third game of the match, but was immediately broken back before Bautista Agut crucially held serve in a game which lasted over 10 minutes. Murray, visibly angered after he failed to take his break opportunities, let his emotions get to him as he was then broken in the next game, which included a double fault. Bautista Agut went on to win the set, which lasted 56 minutes after Murray squandered another breakpoint chance. It was all downhill after that for the Brit, who had chances to break back later in the second set, including 3 in the fourth game, but failed to take them. With the win, Bautista advances as to set up a quarter-final clash with home favourite Stan Wawrinka. Meanwhile, Canada's Felix Auger-Aliassime cruised through with a 6-1-6 love win over Serbia's Miomir Kemanovic to book his spot in the quarterfinals. The Canadian hit new heights as he played what seemed to be the match of his life in a flawless performance that ended his 6-1-6 love victory in 49 minutes. In a flawless second set, he dropped just 7 points and was a perfect 11-for-11 behind his first serve. Showcasing his athleticism and first strike tennis, the third seed finished with 21 winners and 10 aces on the match. Now on a 10-match win streak that began with the title runs in Florence and Antwerp, Auger-Aliassime became the third player to earn 50 wins this season with his latest victory. The Canadian will next meet Alexander Bublik, who earlier triumphed against Albert Ramos Vinolas 6-3, 6-3. 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton intends to race on in Formula One for years to come. Mercedes teammate George Russell said he was excited by the prospect. Hamilton, who will be 38 in January, told reporters in Japan that he planned to race beyond 2023 and expanded on that recently by saying he and Mercedes would do another deal.
I think it will be a multi-year contract. There's like this whole thing of like retiring is always lingering around, and honestly, I don't like the idea of it, and I don't feel like I'm near it. So we have a lot more work to do as a team, as individuals within the team. We have a lot more to do as a sport, and I want to be a part of that shifting.
Mercedes were the dominant team in Formula One, winning 8 successive constructors' titles until dethroned by Red Bull this season. Hamilton and Russell have been wrestling with a difficult car that suffered bouncing early on and have yet to win a race in 2022. And that concludes today's Updates at Noon. In our top story today, King urges Malaysians in Singapore to vote in GE15. Don't forget to tune in to News at 10 tonight. Till then, I'm Mohana Priya. Thank you for your company.